Hey, Trevor, how are you, man?
I'm good and you, Dominic.
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm glad I finally have you on the chat. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Trevor? Where did you grow up? Things like that.
So I'm Kosinati Trevor Mabaso, and I grew up as Zola 3. I have I think a lot of brothers and two sisters. And I sort of went to school as Zola 3, and then, you know, as one does. So it was I think the childhood memories are quite good, and then you get to an adult and you realize where I'm from a neighborhood where everyone at that time wasn't into like I guess in a hurry to do matric like it is now. Back then
Yeah,
it was a matter of whether you have it or you don't, it's okay. You know,
yeah,
you could always, have an uncle or an aunt help you out with a job somewhere, like a piece job, whatever. So, and then I think for my side, I realized that there were a couple of people who had passed matric, right?
mm,
And then they didn't really do much, and so I told myself, worry, I must make sure, worry, when I pass matric, I know where I'm gonna go, not like sit around and sort of like wait for my career to, I don't know, like do a conventional finding a job after matric. But then yeah,
yeah.
that was, I think I initially had an idea where I want to be after matric, so that helped me a lot. And then
Okay,
I was reading and being curious and researching, so like reading for me wasn't a problem,
okay.
yeah.
So you're telling us you are an unconventional Zola raised kid.
In a way, like people still think, oh, wait, you grew up Kokasi, and I'm like, yeah. They're like, I wanna physically see your house that you did, and I'm like, okay, it
No,
doesn't.
I personally didn't believe you grew up in Zola
Oh,
as well.
shut
Like, I
up.
was shocked when I actually saw your home.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those things.
Cool. So maybe, I mean, let's spend some time talking about what you said, which is quite an interesting thing. That it's a society usually dictates how we sort of move forward, and in this community that you're in, like you said, matric was not a people were not in a hurry to matriculate. I mean, there were other options. You could get a job. Well, go you could do some side hustles, and then there's also the element of crime. I mean, so how do you discipline yourself to stay out of the negative stuff? I know you spoke about reading, but what else did you do to kind of stay away from things that could detract you from what you potentially want to do with your life?
Uh, I think it's a great thing that when we were young, you had a group of friends, and I mean, I guess the one thing we did was like do what we call challenge, which was like soccer competitions with
Yeah,
other boys around the hood, or like walk 10 kilometers to go play football. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But then with that as well, parents always encourage you to like get better grades, and
yeah,
uh, I think I listened more than anyone else I did in a way. And also, like, like the childhood friends also as well did well at school. I mean, like, like, okay, so when you're four boys, like, you always compare how much did you get on that, how many percent, or how much, what's your grade. And so with that, I think because of the parents encouraging you to be curious and get better grades, I think I avoided bad company in a way, if you could say, you know what I mean? And
okay,
the thing is then, you know, um, I think like middle school, that's where you actually realize where now you are not just, playing around. You need to seriously study, because I mean, like, the higher you grow, I mean, or you get educated, you sort of realize where some things you have to do yourself. You
yeah,
can't rely on a teacher or someone else or your parent to say to you, write your homework, do this. You know what I mean? You have to take initiative and do it yourself. You know what I mean? And so I then got curious about reading books and reading, like more Shakespeare and that kind of stuff, so that, preparing myself for the next, like, I guess, high school. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing where I grew up was, if you played football, you potentially, be a star and get picked up, which is the same now.
Yeah.
But then it was a matter of, you either did that, or you became a criminal, or you were good at school. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There
Yeah.
wasn't like now you were gonna go be an intern somewhere, or shadow someone at a company. You know what I mean? It was a matter of, and I mean, like, I think back then people did do, like, shadow job kind of things, but I mean, they were not as exposed as they are now. And
Yeah.
so I think sort of things I decided to, like, initially, like, read better, be curious about, how things are done. And then I guess then that's when then, this thing of being interested in movies and TV became, and computers. And so, and then other things, I mean, I think that the one thing I think that also, like, sort of like made me more better, I think, life and, career wise, is that I began my lessons learning to type by using an old typewriter.
Mm.
And so, touch typing for me began then, and then, that then transferred into learning about computers.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I
Sure.
think, there were guys who, like, who'd go and, break into people's houses and get money, and they'd buy these nice clothes, and you'd be like, oh, that's cool. But then when you think of consequences of that, which happened, because I mean, they went to jail, you know what I mean? They stayed there for, came out, did the same thing over and over again. And some
Yeah.
of them sort of passed away because they, ran away from the cops and then get shot.
Sure.
So, yeah,
Sure.
that was my, yeah.
Sure, that's a tough kind of environment to grow in, and I mean, you painted a small picture, which is your perspective as well, growing up. But it doesn't, of course, translate to everyone had the same experience in Zola. It's your own personal experience and what you saw around you, and we commend you, I guess, for choosing a different path and exploring different options. So you spoke a little bit about sort of where you ventured into from studies perspective. So beyond your matric, what did you choose to study? Did you know what you wanted to study? I mean, you spoke a little bit about you played around with computers and you were interested in movies and things like that. Did you know exactly what you wanted to study?
Uh, I think, my minus, even I think, minus the choosing a career, I I did really want to go into filmmaking, because, yeah, it's been a passion, I mean, spending hours watching something and trying to be curious with it. How did they do that? How did they do that? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, that was my initial thing. And then, you know, uh, and then prior to matric, you then realize that, the subjects you choose determine what career you're gonna choose in university.
Yeah.
And so then that sort of didn't really sit well with me, because then I was like, I dig the science side of things, because there's always something. I mean, in every career, but I mean, I think for me, I was good at physics, but then my maths was, a bit of a different story. And so having to realize, well, now you can't really do, you can't be a doctor, or because then, what subject you choose in matric determine what you're gonna do in university. So it was a matter of, okay, cool, I want to do this thing, but I can't do it because of what. But I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, let me then. Also, then I realized, well, when you wanna do a movie, you need funding,
Yeah.
and that funding doesn't come from just anyone. You need to, like, convince people, okay, well, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to do it, and then, like, have a motivation, sort of a mind map. And so I realized, okay, cool. The way I'm gonna finance my movies was to, I'll do law, practice, and then have enough money to be able to fund my own movies. And so,
Sure.
and then, then, past matric, got an exemption, and I was like, oh, great. And I thought it was going to be a matter of, pass matric, apply, and then, immediately, going to university and study my career. But then, then after matric, you realize that there are, I guess, life challenges, and also the career guidance that we got at matric, it wasn't enough for us to be more exposed as to what careers we want to choose. And so it was up to a single person to say, okay, cool, what do I do for myself to have that happen? And so, yeah, so then, I didn't immediately go into into Waseda University and study. It took a while because then I then went into, doing jobs like stock taking and, like, there was this thing where you would stuff envelopes to be sent to like clients and stuff like that. And so yeah, and then I already knew what careers I wanted to do, like law, and then study filmmaking. But then life happened, and so I sort of got sidetracked and wanted to do a job because then also life wasn't so good at home. So yeah, I think with that then comes a problem. Now you're not just a scholar, you have to be also responsible for your own life and see how you're gonna survive. But then in that in mind, I didn't stop myself from pursuing my career. I then sort of got curious about what I'm gonna study and still researched. And I think for a while I sort of now got into a point where I was sort of wasn't anymore interested in studying.
Sure.
I don't know, I can't really remember what triggered me applying at Vets, but I think also was a point in my career, in my life, where I wasn't. Now I was like thinking maybe I should probably do the crime sort of journey and see how it works. And in a way, I'll be a better criminal because then I'll think going compared to just going to a house and breaking in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, but then I think even now, I've always thought about consequences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I mean, lawfully, when you do such things, this is the consequences, and then those then hinder you in terms of your progress in your career or in life. Because then once you go to jail, that's 5 years, whatever years you in, and also you get a criminal record now. How do you navigate around that? You know what I mean? So I then realized, nah, it's not something that would suit me best to just go and be a typical as a criminal.
Yeah. Sure. So you're sharing a lot of stuff that's interesting in your journey. I mean, the reality of funding, it's big for all of us, I guess. When you start thinking varsity and you look at your matric results and you think, sure, I thought I was gonna do a hell of a lot better, and then bursaries will come flowing my way, and then my path is kind of created. And like you said,
Yeah.
depending on the challenges of the different subjects, your outcome becomes different, and then you have to kind of cover a different path. Because then you go back to the folks and you say, well, I did well, I passed, but I need money to go further. And then they say, well,
Yeah.
figure something out. So then you kind of carved your path around the possible reality of where you grew up in, with the issue of crime and potentially you working to raise some of the funds that you need for school. So at what point did you then decide, okay, this is now so you spoke about applying to VETS. This is now what I'm applying for, and I'm going to go pursue it, even with the reality that I'm sitting with.
And I mean, yeah, I think because then, career guidance wasn't such a priority at school, I sort of, got into, finding out where can I apply and how, and what are the opportunities for bursaries. And so then I managed to go to the internet and find out, how do you apply, and what kind of challenges do you get, or what are your options. And the biggest thing was finance.
Yeah.
And so I think the first time I did apply, I think the application was already closed. And then with that, I got despondent, and so then I sort of like let it go for a while. I started like, trying to find, part-time jobs. And then the following year, when I was in the whole career thing anymore, my neighbor one morning told me, "Hey, they are taking applications at Vets. Go apply." And like it hit me, but I was like, "Wait, I wasn't even thinking about this anymore." And then that same time when she told me, it was like probably like early in the morning, Cabo, probably like 8. I, I got up, I'm not really got up, but I mean, I just took a taxi, went to Vets, went to apply, and like you get there and there's this, like, I mean, you realize what you're in a different environment compared to where you come from, and
Yeah.
everyone's like with accents, and there's I mean, different races, and you're like, okay, cool. And then now you're in line applying, and then they want all these things you gotta fill in. You know what I mean? And I think by then I'd realized that people who are making movies and they are getting funding, so I don't really need to do law in order to fund myself. I can do the movie thing and maybe be like them as well, try and find funding while studying, or try and, improve my career during my studies. And so, yeah, I applied. I think a week, 2 weeks later, I got a response saying that I got accepted. And so then now it was a matter of navigating through, getting finance and, I mean, yeah, that whole having applied and, the next steps to now literally going to study. And it happened in a way, like, I mean, even now, I think it happened so fast that by the time I was in my first lecture room, like, I'm probably me and you have spoken about this. Like, Kokasi, or maybe even, I guess, in any life, there are. Oh, I mean, I used to be, I guess, what they call number one student or the A student, and so if someone was doing better, you wanted to be better than them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I was a guy who did homework all the time, didn't miss it, did whatever was told all the time. You know what I mean? So now there I was at the varsity, and like there's all these students, and I realized, wait a second, you aren't the only one who's clever anymore.
Yeah.
You gotta push yourself more harder. And then I think because I read and researched, in metric or during my, I think probably, I think like I've realized that at a stage in my life there are things I've done that have helped me in my career or studies. You know what I mean? And so I think by grade 8, I sort of knew how to research and which information to leave out, and sort of take the gist of the core of the information. So by then, unlike, I mean, yeah, like you I mean, people go to the VS library and they look at the computer and be like, okay, now how do I navigate through this? I mean, even though someone else showed you, but then there was still difficulty. But I mean, with me, I was like, okay, cool. I've used a computer before. I have one. Click, click, click. I want this book. Find it. Go to the shelf and get it. You know what I mean? So, but then that whole orientation of having to be studying after having taken sort of like a break after matric, sort of doesn't, sort of, I think in a way, catches up with you, because then now you're not used to studying. You know what I mean? You now have to
Yeah.
reorientate your mind and be in the mode of, okay, now I have to research, or be on time. And yeah, I think there were times where, like, attending lectures was like, wait a second, what? And also, like, I mean, remember, Kokasi, all the teachers were black, and now you had a lecturer who was Italian, Portuguese, and you know what I mean, Africans, sort of like in the accent. Sometimes they speak and you're like, what word did he say? And some of them wouldn't write notes on the board; they just be speaking, and you have to like
Sure.
write your own notes. And so, a couple of times, like I mean, for the first year, yeah, I think orientation for me wasn't a, a, a week or 2 weeks like that. It was probably like more like 3 6 months, because then you had to wrap your mind around this environment, which I think I think now it's better, because then like students are more exposed to career guidance, and they have information on the laptops, or on phones, to say, okay, this is a career. And I mean, in one career you have quite a broad spectrum of what you want to do. Also back then it was a matter of, you want to be this, and that's what you didn't know that there were more career paths in that career, more than what you thought there were. And what you were studying for was a broader information of what you want to study. And there's little bit of pieces where you could become a producer, a writer, you know also, also, I think also, like, you didn't have to just be a cameraman. It was also finance people in movies. So that was an eye opener. So that
Sure.
was the yeah. And also, like,
Sure.
seeing a theater house, and with lights and everything, and that whole rig for the first year, I was like, geez, I there's so much to learn and get used to. But yeah, that was. I think those are challenges that I sort of like navigated through around being from Ekas.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I mean, you raise very interesting stuff. I mean, everyone talks about the first year of varsity. It's different for everyone, irrespective of what course you're doing. The first reality is you kind of have to direct yourself to the lecture hall. Sometimes you don't even know where to find the lecture hall because the university is so big. Then you get into the lecture hall and you start realizing the diversity of students in the lecture hall, and you're like, yo, I mean, you are in people who got 9, 10 distinctions in the same class with them. And when you just rock up from Kokasi and you're thinking, hey, I was top of the food chain in Kokasi, I rocked my school. And then you come here, you're like, yo, actually, I'm bottom of the food chain in the bigger scheme of things. And you start realizing the challenges. But then the other important thing you raised is the issue of the broadness of the qualification. So it gives you multiple spectrums. If you think film, there's different role players in film. I mean,
Yeah,
you're a producer, like you said, a writer, all of those funny things. And how do you know which path leads you what direction?
yeah.
With the of career guidance that you spoke about as well. So how long were your studies?
Um. So so I studied a BA in drama, which is Bachelor of Arts in Dramatic Arts, in honors. So it's a 4 year degree. And so and then the first 2 years is where you do everything. You do dancing, you do you learn about theory on film and cameras and lighting and audio and directing. And then people who so the drama school has fine arts, as in like painting and charcoal, and then it has the digital side of things, where like the graphic design and animation. And then you have the stream I took, which has the filmmakers, the writers, people who do lighting, and stage directors and producers. But then yeah, so it was 4 years, and then first 2 years are your orientation. So then on your third year, you then choose, you streamline your degree or your courses into, you either want to go into proper acting, where I mean, I guess your main courses are either gonna be acting, directing, and producing, or you have acting, lighting, whatever. You know what I mean? And then I chose, or I mean, the other thing. So I realized that the other thing that, I mean, even now, the stress in the TV industry was that people study, but they don't have practicals. And so I thought, wait, whilst I'm studying, what would be the best thing for me to do to gaining physical experience rather than just, being always doing theory. So then I chose stage management, which then what happens is that so I chose drama and film in third year, stage management, and then I can't really remember what the third one was, but I mean it was a mixture of like digital and camera, and so then with that, then also other things. I mean, you realize that people who are not in your sort of stream or your career path or the courses you choose in third year, you can learn from them. That's what I did. And so then I realized, okay, cool, let me take stage management, because I mean, stage management is practical, right?
Yeah.
What you do is in third year, you get to sit with the director or the creator of a show, and then then people who audition for a show, and then you sort of, like tell them what time it's supposed to meet, they make sure they do their voices and like prepare them for stage. And then with that, for me, and also then also at Vets, they have this thing where first and second year students become crew members at a theater, and then as stage manager, you then supervise them or like guide them how to do things. And so that's what I chose. And like it came, like it sort of like wasn't like sort of like I was like, wait. And because then I've also sort of like spoken to other third, fourth years who were doing it. They were like, oh yeah, if you do that, then it's good for you, because then you're going to have practicals and be able to see how things sort of navigate in the industry. So I chose that, and it exposed me to being able to take care of a crew, as you call it. And so that's what I did. And then with that, then you also have to make sure, Hori, when you are planning a show that's going to physically be in theater, people are going to come watch it, and it's on your shoulders, because then some directors, are I guess, so
Yeah.
they come in. Let's say, I mean, like for instance, they prepare a show that will be in theater in 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And then when they've done the base, the background of the work, knowing where everyone's supposed to be in stage, who the main characters are, they then leave and then say, okay, you take care of it, and
Sure.
they come in when you have problems or when they need to, because then now they are going to go somewhere else and direct, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with that, then that helped me, because then I could sort of like help the actors with their warming ups, and if they had problems, and then so yeah. And it helped, because then also like working with directors who were not just who were not just lectures at Vets. They were, they've been in different countries, directed everywhere. That exposed me to, okay, this is how things are, out there in the industry. And then also our stage management lecturer was in the industry. She was practicing, like properly, doing stage management. And so that then helped me during my career. And then with that, then you also have to balance your other courses. So submitting and researching, and and a bit of, I guess, varsity life. You know what I mean? Because I mean, there has to be that balance. You can't just be studying, researching, and doing schoolwork whilst you're not doing the fun side of life, which varsity is always there. And if you get into that, you know that mindset of, okay, I'm gonna play more than work or study, you fall into the bad grades, and that then leads you to not getting more funding, or like seriously dropping out, which is what happens with other students. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you were there, like people who chilled at the lawn all the time, and you see one guy and you're like, wait, why is he not going to lectures? And the other thing that came out was that you realize that someone would come in and be like, wait, I'm third year, but then you're in a second year class, and you're like, how's that possible? And as you go on, you realize, okay, people who have failed the subject pick it up the following year, so then they have a second year course, a third year, and a fourth year. But then with that, then also where it delays you in terms of your graduating, because then until you have enough points to graduate, you can't just be having every other courses in second year, third year, fourth year, because those are going to delay you. And then that exposed me to say, okay, cool, make sure whilst doing my practicals, I make sure that my theory as well, the grades are getting better. So that I don't want to be the person now who sort of finishing your degree in the 4 year, you're finishing it in 7 years.
Yeah.
With some students it happened. And some realized that happened. They were like, nah, I'll drop out and go do something else. And some of those people are famous now, but they didn't really get to finish their degrees.
Yeah,
And
and I
so,
think that's the challenge with a field like yours. That's broad. I mean, you had an opportunity to be live in some of the productions and see exactly what it's done. I remember I used to get some nice free tickets to come see some theater stuff, which is awesome. But you could get lost in that, and some of the directors could even approach you and say, "You're really good at what you do, even from a practical side on stage management. Come work with me already, because I have work for you to do." And that could derail you from finishing your qualification. So you raise an important point. So I'm assuming you finished, and I'm quite curious to then know. So after you completed your qualification, what was then work like for you within the industry that you've selected?
Yeah, so because of what I said before, that there are points in my life where I'm like, let me choose this, and it helps me progress forward. What I also did whilst I was studying as well was getting an internship at Isidingo.
Ah,
I mean, we were in the same res with you, and so when I just emailed to say, okay, I want to be an intern on this production, and then I got a reply, and I was like, oh wait, you know what I mean? So then when I went to Internet Sitting, like when I got there, like some of the things that were done, you were like, wait, that's how it's done in the like in a real TV production, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And it was 2 weeks, but like the amount of information I got was quite like immense and helpful, you know what I mean? Because then it helped me beyond graduating. So then I did graduate and then realized that the industry is not as open and friendly as it seems when you are studying.
Yeah.
And you sort of then wish things like internship are encouraged more so in the orientation of the first year. Like, the first classes of anything, they tell you, okay, cool, here you are, this is where you're gonna go career wise, and you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for you to get these better grades, or make sure that you don't just do theory. Also make sure that your practicals or your physical and your you balance the two, you know what I mean? And so then that really sort of stayed with me, so that I realized that, okay, cool, if I able to get an internship, I'll be having a better exposure of the industry. And so then, yeah, it took a while. I didn't get a job immediately as well. So then I then did like career, not really career, but like I sort of like did some other like part-time jobs, like camp leadership, all of that, so that in the meantime, whilst I was still applying to get into the industry, I can be busy, not really like go back to that mindset of not studying, not working, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so because of I guess, I'm more of a, I don't know. I believe that God ruin. I mean, sort of like reigns in our lives, and so I balanced camp life, which was Christianity sort of side of things, and then applying to get into the industry. And so with that, then now and then, like there'll be dramas in that camp life, or like some sort of shooting being done with a camera. But I mean, back then cameras weren't as as I guess flexible as they are now, or on the phones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I then was working part-time jobs every now and then, still keeping in mind that I want to go into the industry. And so I then applied into an internship with Mnet, of which then I did get in. And then everyone, it's the same one that they're doing now. But I mean, back then they took 12 interns.
Sure.
And then in the first week, there were I think probably 11 of us, and then immediately it became 9. And so in our internship, it was 2 boys and the rest were girls. So I guess it would have been, so 2 boys and 7 girls. There were none of us.
Yeah.
And then interned with Mnet, got exposed to the practical side of the industry, learning what people in lighting really do, and editing and audio, and how everything sort of comes together, and what role when are you supposed to be playing when in that role that you are intending for. So we were training to be production assistants, which is like I think production wise is the entrance to let me put it like this. So a production assistant becomes a production coordinator, who then becomes a production manager, and then you then grow into producing and executive, in that way. But I mean, so like production assistant was the entrance to production management. And then we also had guys who were also in the same internship, but then their career paths were more lighting and cameramen. And so then same thing, you know what I mean? Because then I was intending for this role, I didn't let myself just be, like sort of focus onto that thing. I spoke to the guys, you know what I mean? Every now I'm like, okay, cool, what do you guys do? What are you guys getting taught in your class? You know what I mean? Because I mean, we were like, so we were in the same internship, but then different classes. So like during break, whatever, I'd be like, okay, cool. What is this? What we did? What you guys do? And how does what we do sort of help you guys? And how vice versa? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so then that then internship went on for a year, of which then they were gonna choose 3 to work as permanent, not really, but I mean, be staff at Mnet. And so as like we then we're tasked to submit and practicals to do. And so I mean, I was disciplined, so I made sure I was going to be top 3. And then the final thing was that then everyone had to do their own project, of which would then combined with the practicals and your other marks you got. I mean, imagine. It's still a matter of the same thing, at school you get a symbol, and you have to also be good at your practicals. Something in varsity, you know what I mean? Same thing here in the internship. You have to balance your theory and your practicals. And so our last task was to create a music video, because they found a music artist who wanted to do a music video. And so we had to create a story behind the music video. And so I was like, hell, let's go. You know what I mean? And so I had an idea, I put it together, and they liked it, and then oh yeah, and for the music video, then there were three of us who sort of whose ideas were better, and then they chose one, but then they chose someone else's, not mine. But then mine was, yeah, like it was pretty good, because also I also got Unkululeko, a friend who does architecture, to design a stage for me.
Oh wow.
And so that then I put into, so then I had a stage where I could show, okay, well, this is how I want to do the music video. And I mean, you know, I sort of balanced the literal side of life on the music video and the lessons coming out of it. But I mean, yeah, so a lady who was part of the internship won, and then we then had to, you know, help her out with her music video. But then, so like, yeah, it's a matter of organizing extras and like a proper production where you had to, like, you know, book cameras, book lighting, make sure people are there on time, book the stage. Yeah, so it at the end of the whole internship, it became a huge thing. Okay, cool. Now here we are as interns doing a production that's gonna be in a music video and on TV, and you know, people are gonna have access to it. And so yeah, that happened, and it was great. And then the internship was ending, and so now it was a matter of, okay, who are gonna be
Top
chosen?
three.
And I don't know if there's an answer, so I could just continue as to what happened.
You can continue. I mean, I'm curious, but then I'm sure everyone will be curious to know what happened. Did you make
So,
top three?
so I think, I mean, as you know, as I mean, when you are in an internship environment, or even at work, you know what I mean. You know who your competition is in a way, and I like competition. I like challenges. You know what I mean. I like an environment where you can either be excellent on your own
Yeah.
and with other people. You know what I mean. And so I think by the end of the internship, we sort of knew, besides, you know, the top three who got the be in the top three with the music video, would then also be part of the top 3 or 4 or 5. We're gonna take the part to being part of Mnet staff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and then it happened, and then 3 were chosen. It was me and 2 other girls, and so then I then transitioned into working as a production assistant on Mnet.
Sure, that's brilliant. And I mean, look, often we see these things on TV. We see series, we see movies that we love, and we never really understand the amount of work that goes behind it. And you've given us some insights around, there's people that does the lighting, there's the camera guy, there's people like yourself that looks at the storyline of what's going to be produced, and how does every part fit in? Where do I have more light here, less light there? I need a stage like you spoke about for the music video, and what should that look like, and what are the props, what are the extras, etc. So it's quite interesting to hear sort of the background of things. And you will almost assume when everyone studies drama, they want to be in front of the camera. They want to be the celebrity, the ones that we see on TV, the ones that we remember from movies. And often you don't hear someone saying, actually, I want to be at the back end, seeing the full production play out, and what that looks like. So you got the intern and got the job at Mnet. And so what did you do after that? What kind of career path did you choose for yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, same thing. Now remember, this is the not internship anymore.
Yeah.
Not if you are reliable for something, if you make a mistake, it can be rectified by someone who's the superior than you.
Yeah.
This time it was, you are getting paid, you are part of staff, and so make a mistake, you get a warning, when then, you know, you go away.
Yeah.
And so, because then, you know, I was determined, you know, to be better, and so I was part of a production team called Mnet, which was responsible for producing or sort of hunting for shows at Mnet. You know what I mean? And so the first show was called No, I think there has been so many of them as well, but I think the one that really I was in according to was called I Wanna Be. It was a show about people who. So I Wanna Be was about people who wanted to, do certain, I guess, industry roles. What we got was people who wanted to be people who weren't singers, right? And still wanted to sing, and some wanted to be anything that but people wanted to do, but they weren't doing it at that time. So then there were people who wanted to be in a choir, people who wanted to be singers, people who wanted to be DJs, people who wanted to be like career paths that people wanted to be, but then they could only do it in 2 weeks with us, sort of like make their goals come through, but then in 2 weeks, and then the people so then the people who had to submit motivations, and then they were chosen. Okay, cool. And then I was responsible for looking at the auditions and choosing if they were good enough, and then so I would watch it first, and then also this time it wasn't a day where we were using USBs and drives. Back then it was mini TV tapes where you sort of press, click, it rewinds, you watch it rewind, and you stop it, and then take it out, put another one. You know what I mean? So yeah. So then there were those that producers chose because then they were more attractive. You know what I mean? And there were those that they went short. So they're like, okay, Trevor, here. There are these many singers. Choose the best 5 or 3, and then give us the options and see which ones do you want. And so then that's how the matter was in the show. And also then it was a matter of assisting the production manager to book equipment and book the people who were auditioning, tell them what time they're supposed to come in, where they're supposed to go, and then when they were there, fetch them from the reception and, sort of, help them out during the day. And then, there were quite a lot of us in our team. So I think there were 2 production assistants. There were 3 production coordinators. I think in the beginning, there were 2 production managers, and then we had the producer, and then everyone else who were cameramen and lighting got in at a later stage. And so, it was tough. It was. You also then got used to the industry hours, you know what I mean? That you don't just come in, say you're gonna work, and then also like lunch wasn't at lunch 1 o'clock traditionally. It was whenever you get time, you take lunch. You know what I mean? And also you had tasks to fulfill, and also being under someone as a production assistant, I was under a production manager. Every time she'd be like, okay, cool, here's your task in the morning, or you have this task in the morning, or some of them you were given a leeway to finish them the following day or in the morning, you know what I mean? And so then every morning I know what I'm gonna do, and then be able to make sure when they say, have you done this, it was done. And so I made sure things were done. I didn't leave work at sort of like when everyone left. I made sure that our tasks were done, and the production. So it happened. I think the one I was also telling my colleagues the other day about there's this one guy who wanted to be a tank operator. The military tanks. He wanted to be that. Jeez. And so, dude, we realized that he's what he chose was going to be difficult to organize, but then we went with it. And so he took him to the military base, Koopmanfontein, where like they train soldiers to do everything. And he got trained, and he got it, dude. And like
in the 2 weeks period.
Eh?
In the 2 weeks timeline that you guys had.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't. I think it was. Maybe I might. The thing is, it was so long. 2009. Okay. So I think he he got training in that 2 weeks or in that week. But I mean, yeah, he also like I mean, I think he also had researched this thing for quite a while for himself. You know what I mean? So you could see the passion in him. Like he knew where everything was in the tank and how to operate. And by the time he got into the tank, also like I mean, you think, I mean, in the military base, like the actual one, they have like these. I don't know if like maybe they have these stations where the actual thing, the tank itself, is like a miniature tank where before you go into the actual thing and operate it, they
Yeah.
teach you in a like a smaller version of it. So like he got taught into the smaller version, and when they thought then he was ready to go operate the real tank, then that was it. And so like then so then we had to film the whole thing. So then I had to assist the cameraman with batteries and cables, and I mean make sure things were there and they were available. And so when we were shooting this tank thing, dude, we were in this huge field where the tanks get sort of get used to for training by the military. The amount of running around and making, because I mean remember we had to like shoot the before and after
Yeah.
for it to be on TV. So like it was quite an experience. But I mean the amount of work that went into it, I mean probably, I mean like on TV productions, for instance, let me show, like comedies get shot in 3 months, right?
Sure.
And then you only get 10 episodes or 13 episodes on TV. But I mean, the amount of hours that get trickled down to what you watch on TV is a lot.
Sure.
Because I mean, there's this thing now that we shoot an episode a day.
Yeah.
So one episode gets shot in a day, of which then in America or industries, or some people try, they would shoot an episode in a week.
Wow.
And so then, the South African industry shoots quick. And that then also depends on the budget, because then sometimes you don't, also the production companies or the broadcasting companies gives you a deadline to say you have this long to deliver, and then you then as a production company have to filter in how long do I have to get crew and finish production shooting, and then your post production, and then finally then into the final product that goes into broadcasting. And so that show happened and I learned a lot, and then I then moved into other shows, which like a variety of them. And I think the other one that we did was quite fun, where it was the three of us, was a music video show called I Request, where people had to request music videos and then they choose, and then we say, okay, cool. When then we go into events and I approach people and say, okay, cool, we have this show we are doing. What music video do you like? For example, I like this music video by whoever, and then they choose, and then we put it on TV. And with that, then I remember there was one time we were shooting this event, and this guy was like, yo, I didn't know you guys work so much to put this thing on TV. Like, it's not really easy now when you were like, like there's so much that goes on in the background for it to be on TV, that we sort of hide we sort of like the final product is like in a mental piece, beautiful and on TV, and as a viewer you don't see the mistakes or what happened for it to get to where it is. And so then in that internship, that's what we learned, that you work so many hours for you to produce what's supposed to be on TV, and the person who's watching, I mean, that's the one thing our supervisor in internship you say, if we were sick or you were in that morning, you didn't want to wake up, person who wants to watch the thing on TV doesn't care. They want to see their show on TV.
Their show, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's your job, so you gotta deliver. And so I always had that in mind, that you gotta do what you wanna do in the hours you are given, even though there's not really much. But then in the end, the product has to be delivered. And so that's always been, I mean, even in the corporate world, you know what I mean? People do pitches and business ideas, and then there's a certain constraint of time where it's supposed to be delivered. So same thing with our industry. You can't just think you're gonna relax and not work hard for something to be on TV. You play a role in the whole role with the colleagues you are with, and so when you realize someone is slacking or is not doing their job, you gotta tell them. You know what I mean? Because if you don't, then your role suffers, and so you don't want that. Because then you end up being in a disciplinary meeting, which you don't really want to go there, or getting a warning. But yeah, it's that. I mean, I thought maybe that would be less as as I'm in an industry, but it pops up every now and then that you at a certain point as a person you gotta not consider someone's feelings, but think of if they aren't doing if they aren't doing their role, it affects everyone with the production. And so over time you say to someone, okay, dude, you aren't doing this, do it. In the end, you gotta say, okay, cool, formal email, send, this is what's happening, and the person is not really playing ball. And then because I mean, some people don't really confront you and say you didn't do this. They just tell the next person who's or the supervisor or the producer that someone was supposed to deliver this thing, they didn't deliver it. And then some people then get a warning immediately, not like a verbal warning that they didn't deliver. And so I think I mean I think that I realized in the industry when I came in was that some people don't have like 3 years, 2 years of theory. They just come in as interns in the industry and then just work and then grow in that way. They don't really. I think in the industry back then there wasn't a matter of people didn't go to school. They just said I want to work, and then they become that small role and then grow up in the industry, and then they become DOPs or producers, but then without having had the background theory. But then even now they always stress that theory is good because then you sort of know why things come from, and the theory to practical helps you because then that for this thing to come together, there are these little things that I gotta add on that I have experienced or have learned somewhere, that this is how, even now, like I mean, even these days, you still have to research on any production that you are doing so that you get better, or in your own role as a person, you have to every now and then, okay, cool, how do I make things better? How do I improve? How do I make sure the production works even better for what I'm responsible for? But some people don't. Some people do. It's an individual choice.
Yeah. Sure. So it sounds like most jobs, I guess, where you have the issue of collaboration being very important, people slacking. But I guess what's different with the arts world and the creative space is, like you said, some people are coming with raw talent that hasn't been trained from varsity. And so it's about grooming the talent into the right direction. And some people come with trained talent, which they start critiquing the raw ones. Like, are you sure that's what you need to do? Okay, so now you've kind of moved from a production analyst or assistant. I guess you grew in your career within the industry. What are you these days? What are you called these days? And I can imagine you've shared a little bit on how much it takes to put a production together. Now I understand the 12-hour days you talk about to get to 1 or 2 episodes that you guys are doing. So what are you called these days? And like, how long did it take you to transition from a production assistant to what you are now?
I'm a what is called a DIT, that data image technician. So I'm like the bridge between post production and the live shoot. You know what I mean? So I sort of sort of then have to make sure that the cameras are balanced, or they shoot the same thing, and also like then make sure that the lighting is like everything that's being done in a production works well, but more of camera and lighting and sound. And so then I think, I mean, production assistant was mostly at Mnet, and then I then became a production coordinator as well in that same stream. I then, because then also I'd already had a computer background, I then transitioned into post, the editing side of things, and became a data wrangler, which is the entry into being a DIT. And that then means you are responsible for footage and so you prepare footage for editing to post. And so the first big, I guess, series we did was called The Wild, which was about a game lodge, workers in their everyday life and how they navigate through being in the game lodge. And so there I was a data wrangler. So I was responsible for footage and capturing it and making sure everything is there, and that so that post then when they're editing, there's not too many problems. I then became an assistant editor as well, because that then also goes into assistant editing and then editing. So I think, because I mean, that's the other thing about the industry is that it's not, your roles aren't set. You know what I mean? Like you aren't a producer on this show or before, and that's it. That's what you are to do. You are a producer on this show. The next one you are a writer. Other one you are a cameraman. You know what I mean? But I mean, those aren't really sort of related. But I mean, for instance, in production, you would be, let's say for this show, you'll be a production assistant, right? On another production, you'll be a production manager. So your roles are in the same stream, but then they aren't the same, because our industry is so small. People want, because then if you stick to, unlike the other countries, if you stick to one thing, you might apply and they say that role is filled by someone who has more experience than you. You know what I mean? And so you choose a role according to how fast can you get hired.
Okay.
In a way, or which role then will get you more jobs than the other one. And so for me, it was the post editing side of things, which then because of the background of computers, I was able to learn software, learn hardware, learn how footage starts from being shot in a camera, what it looks like, how it gets compressed in the camera and going into a computer, and how then do you filter out what is called metadata in it, like the information that you get in a single video clip, and then how that breaks down into a scene, a whole episode, and then into a final post-production product where now it's ready for what we call final mix, where audio gets put into the audio and it's cleaned out. And so so I'm in the, I guess, post-production stream, where I'm the middleman between post and production. And so that's, I think for the past 10 years, that's what I've focused my career on. And it is flexible, but then, because the industry is so small, in America or the other countries, what they do is, if you are a cameraman, you're a cameraman with so many years that you get paid what you're worth as a cameraman. But in South Africa, because then your roles are so different. So your experience in being a camera assistant and this wouldn't be the same as being a focus puller. You know what I mean? I mean, they're all in the camera industry, but then you sort of have to know all of them, because then you might not know where your opportunity is going to come from.
Okay.
So then people then go into, and then which is why then, you know, the older generation is more set onto, you know, someone who's a DOP there, DOP, and then that's what they do. I mean, they have experience in focus pulling and camera operating, you know what I mean, and lighting. Yeah. But then, as they grow up, they realize then they have to, what do you call it? Sort of. Yeah, like sort of then have that one role that they are best at, because then some people, you think someone would say they are I guess a VT person, which is someone who deals with you know, a VT operator is someone who, I guess, it depends on whether you're shooting in a studio or you're shooting in, you know, in a live location site, but they sort of help with the visuals for directors and producers and DOPs, that they see what's being shot. You know what I mean? So someone who's a VT operator wouldn't, let's say they have probably 3 years experience in that, but then they have 5 years experience in being a cameraman. You know what I mean? Okay. And so, because then you don't get paid in a way, I mean, I guess, I mean, what you don't get paid what you're worth, because then your role is not concentrated into one career path. You know what I mean? In America, when you are a producer, you are that, and you get paid enough for you to be that. You know? But in South Africa, because your career path, like your roles in the industry are so many, when you do get the one you actually love and get paid for it, you sort of, you know, negotiate, okay, well, this is how much money I'm worth, and negotiate your salary. Or and also I mean the industry is broad, and so the people who are in broadcasting where they have permanent positions, and there are those who freelance. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then freelancers are the ones who, you know, one day you are doing an ad, the following day you are doing a drama, the following day you are doing a bioscope. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so then, and people who graduate come into the industry and realize, okay, cool, I can't really, you know, be just pick one role in the industry, because then if you apply for a job and that role is filled, you don't have work. Yeah, and so I guess the other thing is, you know, some productions tend to suffer because someone might say, I have experience in this, but then they don't really have that much experience, and so, you know, their role wouldn't be as fulfilled as it should be if they had, you know, Justin J, you know, had more experience in it. Yeah. So some jobs they do, but then it's not really, you know, at a satisfactory level as you know someone who does that role. You know what I mean? Yeah. And because also of the 12 hours, it's 12 hours during a shoot, and it's industry stamped in a way that you work 12 hours and that's how much you work, and then, you know, it can either be less, but then, and there's also overtime, and then overtime is negotiated upon, you know what I mean, during a shoot or during production. But yeah, so I think now I sort of am at a point where I really like my role as a DIT, because, you know, it gives me the practical side of the industry and the other post side of the industry, because then, you know, you see the product before it's halfway finished. Mm-hmm. And you also know what's going to look like when it's finished, or you have an idea what's going to look like when it's finished, right? Because then you communicate with production, and, you know, they ask you things, okay, cool, this happened, what happened, you know what I mean? So like you solve problems of the shoot and then help post production make sure that when they get footage, they're not struggling to say, okay, cool, I don't have this sound. Where is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or there's too much exposure in this camera or in that scene. What happened? You know what I mean? So you make sure that there is they don't spend too many hours cleaning up the cleaning up footage. You know what I mean? Because then off the budget and the hours able to deliver an episode, it's not too much of a task.
Sure. Sounds interesting. Like you're the guy that saves the budget.
I yeah, there's also a lot of people get involved in that because everyone has to make sure that we don't overshoot or you don't reshoot stuff.
Yeah.
Because then that means more people being hired or more time being taken off what's something that's supposed to have been done in a week or two, but then it takes longer because then the mistakes weren't spotted before they got into post-production. So like I make sure that there's less problems happening on set, so that then more money is not spent on on post-production trying to clean everything up. But then that also it's a whole degree of, it's not just me, it's a matter of there's also an assistant editor who also checks what I've checked, and then also an editor who then also has to make sure, okay, cool, this product or the feature I'm looking at has been checked, and they then because they are the final person to see this thing, make sure that it's cleaned up to a point where when a director has to come see it, or a producer or an executive from the broadcast company, it's well cleaned. You know what I mean? The amount of criticism or points that need to be added are minimal.
Okay.
It's not a matter of redo the whole thing, which is never a good thing.
Cool. So, no, thank you so much for that, Trevor. I think it has been quite an insightful conversation around what happens in production, what happens post-production, how do you edit stuff and make sure that it's clean and right, save budget. But also what's interesting for us is just the journey you've traveled from your time in Zola to now you being a fully fledged person behind the scenes, which is quite cool. So any parting thoughts, someone who'd like to follow your career path, any advice that you'd give them? You've spoken about the possibility of, I have raw talent, I can do it. Leave me alone. I don't need a qualification. And you have an aspect of, I need a qualification so that I can do better in time. And yes, there's flexibility in the industry. So any advice that you want to give someone looking at this and saying, look, I'm keen to do this. Where do I start? How do I get help? And what do I do?
Yeah, I think the one thing is self-motivation more than anything else, that you have to even though you sort of, I think theory is good in the industry, and you also gotta balance that with with practicals. But then I think whilst you're studying, you have to volunteer. You know what I mean? Go into production and say, I want to volunteer as this, because then there are internships now compared to before, and it's a matter of exposing yourself or applying for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is you do get theory, even if it's 2 years. You know what I mean, or a year of theory, and then get into the industry, and then you also then have to learn as much as you can if you do get an internship. Yeah. And so I'd say get your theory, also then balance your theory while studying, expose yourself to the industry. Find someone who's like me, who can help you in the industry, and or get exposed to internships. And so I mean, now there's so much research out there. Your YouTube, there's master classes. You can help yourself with that. But then it's it's make sure that when you do choose a career in a role in the TV industry, you don't spread yourself too much.
Yeah.
Because then you might not be able to do the thing that you say you can. You sort of like now in an average sort of position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think have your theory, like, you know. I think the other thing is, I mean, you know, like I was saying, because of being a varsity, there's this one thing that architecture does is architecture. What they do is you study for 3 years, and in your 4th year you go out there and find a job in the architecture in the industry, and then they come back and study for their 4th year and finish off. You know what I mean? That's a great thing that architecture has, and I wish the career path I did, which is honors in drama, they had the same thing, that, you know, students study for 3 years, theory or whatever. I mean, you are in the varsity industry for those 3 years. In the 4th year, you leave varsity and go out there and find a job in the industry, so to get exposed as to when you do finish your degree, you've already had contacts. You know what I mean? You already know people in the industry, so for you it's okay, cool. Someone says, I have this opening job. I know someone who's been with us, and, you know, they were hard worker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were able to help us with 1 and 2 and 3, and of course you shouldn't also, you know, I guess, get into doing a job for free. You know, you need to have some compensation. You need to have a stipend, because then, you know, traveling, or, you know, if you have a car, such things you need. You know what I mean? The basics you do need. You know what I mean? And so you can't just be a person who always says, when I'm volunteer for some students. No, you do need some stipend, or like something that would, you know, motivate you finance-wise. Because I mean, you know, in that way, you are also responsible for other things, your livelihood. So, I think it's a more expose yourself in the industry. Don't just, you know, do theory and say, okay, I'm gonna study. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do anything else. And also, I mean now most TV and film advertising schools, I mean, they do practicals. You know what I mean? I think now there's more exposure, but I mean, it's a matter of, I mean, you know, varsities and schools and colleges can only do so much. It's up to you to say, okay, cool, how do I help myself to get more exposure in the industry, and, you know, get into an industry and people knowing who you know, we know who you are, where you come from. And some people just choose to just go and volunteer. You know what I mean? And then they in the industry, like, you know, they just get into it like that. Or, like, I mean, someone will be like, oh, hey, I'm shooting something. They know a brother who's going to come help them out. And then that person then, you know, sort of gives an idea of what the industry is about, and then they get in. But I think if you want to follow a career in the TV industry, get your theory, and then also, you know, get an internship, you know. So, I mean, it's not as easy as it seems, because the industry is quite small, or not as broad. I mean, it's there's so many, you know, like, I mean, bioscopes and the little dramas being done, comedies. So, like, I mean, you can't get exposed in that while you're still studying, or what you get into the industry. But it's a matter of what relationships do you put. I mean, the relationships in the industry are vital, because then how you treat someone in that production helps you get a job in the next production. Because then, if now you're not a person who's people aren't really willing to work with, you suffer, because then people will be like, that guy is not really friendly, or doesn't really do his job very well. You know what I mean? So you always got to create relationships in this strategy for you to get the next job. But I mean, I think the one thing, discipline, is a focus on what you do and research it, and better yourself every time. You know what I mean? For every new show you do, you sort of realize, okay, I've learned this. You know, I didn't know about this, now I know it. You know what I mean? And so also, like, in a way, help other people as well in their roles. You know what I mean? Don't just say I'm helping myself. Help other people as well. You know, I think like now and then discuss, okay, this is, I like this thing, how do you do it, you know what I mean? Like, be curious about other people's roles in the industry. Don't just focus on yourself. I think, these days, there's so much that a person can go into, and then there's writing, and then there's people who write as well, also then become producers as well. So I think theory is good, you know what I mean? And and then if you then you supplement that with practicals and knowing people in the industry, and like, I mean, people now, buy cameras and experience, have become camera, I mean, like, do like studio shoots and all of that, and have YouTube channels, you know what I mean? Those things do help. Or like doing a music video for your friend, or help people out. I think those things help you as a person to grow in the industry and expose yourself to other things, you know what I mean? And I think ultimately everyone wants to own a production company. It's not really something that everyone is it's not that easy, you know what I mean? Because then you once we have that role, it's a whole lot of role, you know what I mean? You're responsible for 200 people.
Sure.
And you gotta make sure that those people then get delivered, because then if you don't, then your production company becomes liable. And with broadcasting companies aren't friendly with people who don't deliver.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many productions that you see, that you have seen on TV who weren't renewed because then for that production show to be on TV, there were so many struggles, you know what I mean, that happened, and then some don't continue because then people just fail to deliver.
Sure. No, thank you so much for that, Trevor. I think you've given us a lot of insights and a lot of your time.
I mean, it's quite a broad industry and there's so much to talk about. But I mean, I think what I've said sort of helps someone, and I mean, also, I mean, I've always been willing to teach someone or have someone, learn if they want help. But I mean, so I think I know how your mentoring students is quite a good thing, because then we have to help each other, you know what I mean? I mean regardless of race or whatever, or orientation, or where you come from, and it's a matter of people help each other in whatever career, or that so that we as a country we grow. And I mean, we need a space where in our country it's not just 30% of people who are paying tax. It has to be 80% of us, you know what I mean? Because then we see how our country lacks a lot. And we just gotta chip into that. But that's a
You're right, and I mean, I thank you for that, because I mean, we've spoken offline about some other ideas that we have around how do we create these skill sets, especially from where we come from, because we come from townships where none of the stuff was available to us to find. If you go search for this kind of stuff on the internet, you might not necessarily find it as well. So the ideal thing to do is to kind of create an environment where we can have these conversations, but we want to sort of graduate the space where we have an environment where we can start teaching each other these skill sets and say, practically, these are some of the things you can do for yourself. Don't go the crime route. Come here, let's do this thing together, build up some talent, and let's see if potentially we can produce more people that are able to edit videos, that are able to create content out there, that are able to make finance or money out of this kind of platforms that we have now. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your time and your willingness to have this conversation even with your 12-hour shifts.